Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to do part 2 of Black Beauty by Anna Sewell. Let's begin. Chapter 4, Freedom. I was very happy in my new home, but there was one thing I missed: freedom. For over 3 years, I had all the freedom I wanted, but then, week after week, month after month, and year after year, I had to stand up in a stable day and night until I was needed. And even then, I had to stand steady and quiet, with straps here and there, a bit in my mouth, and blinkers over my eyes. All this was uncomfortable for me, but I knew this is how horses must live. But for a young, full horse of strength and spirit, who has been used to a large field where he can fling up his head and toss up his tail and gallop away at full speed, it was very hard to get used to standing in a stable day after day. Sometimes when I had less exercise than usual, I felt so full of life that when John came to take me out for a run, I could hardly keep steady. But John was always understanding and seemed to know what it must have felt like to be cooped up in a small stable all day. As soon as we were out of the village, he let me run at a good pace for a few miles. On Sundays, the horses were given a few hours of freedom to roam in the fields. This was a great treat for us. The grass was cool and soft for our feet. It was a wonderful feeling to run and gallop as we pleased. Chapter 5, Ginger. One day when Ginger and I were standing alone in the shade, we had a chance to talk. She asked me all about my life and my breaking in, and I told her all there was to tell. "Well," she said, "if I had your experiences, I might have a good temper too, but now I think it is too late for me." When I asked her why, Ginger told me all about her life. She had been taken from her mother when she was very young and put with a lot of other older young colts. Other young colts. There was no one to take care for her, and there was no kind master to look out for her and show her affection. In the field where she used to run, there was a young boy who would throw stones at the colts. Ginger was never hurt, but one of the other colts was hit in the face and scarred for life. Scared and scarred for life. Wow. When it came time for her breaking in, she was captured by several rough men, who forced the halter and bar into her mouth. When she tried to protest, they whipped her until her flanks ached. After that, Ginger was kept in a small dark stall. Her master's son was a cruel drunkard who wanted to break her high spirits. If she did not do exactly as he pleased, he would make her run around the training field until she was so tired she could hardly stand. One day he worked her so hard that she lay down and felt tired, miserable, and angry. The very next morning he came for her early and ran her around the track for a long time. He gave her no rest, and when she began to show her weariness, he whipped her with his crop. This was too much for poor Ginger, and she began to kick and rear up as she had never done before. At last, after a terrible struggle, she was able to throw the cruel man to the ground. Then, without looking behind her, she galloped away into the fields. Ginger stayed there for what seemed like a very long time. She became very hungry and thirsty, and the flies swarmed around her in the hot sun. Finally, as the sun was going down, an old man who was very kind came out to the field and gave her oats and fresh water to drink. He spoke gently to her in a kind and thoughtful way, and she allowed him to lead her back to the stable. After he brought her to the stable, he washed her wounds with warm water and stood by her. He stroked her while she rested. He came to see her often, and she was given to another trainer named Job. He was gentle and thoughtful. and Ginger soon learned what was expected of her. Chapter 6. Ginger's story continued. The second time Ginger and I were alone together, she told me about her next home. After she had been broken in, she was bought by a stylish gentleman and sent to the city. Her new master wanted more than anything else to be fashionable, so he pulled her reins very tight. He did this so that Ginger would keep her head held high for hours at a time. He did not want her to move at all. She also had to wear two bits, which were so sharp they hurt under her tongue and made it bleed. Sometimes she was made to stand outside a place and wait for her master. If she moved or put down her head, she was whipped. It was enough to drive her mad. When she was miserable and angry, she only received a harsh word or a blow. Ginger was willing to work and make her owners proud, but they cared nothing about her and only made her suffer. The pain in her mouth and her neck became so unbearable that when anyone came to harness her, she would snap and kick. Finally, Ginger could not stand it no more, and she broke out of her harness and ran away. After this, she was sold to different owners. People were afraid of her bad temper, so she did not stay in any home for a very long time. Her last master was very rough and poked Ginger with a pitchfork if she did not obey. One day, when he tried to beat her with a riding whip, she bit him on the arm. From that time on, he was afraid to come too close to her. So Ginger learned one way for a horse to deal with human cruelty. But Ginger then told me that since she had been living here at Birtwick, her life had changed in many ways. John and James, the stable grooms, have learned to treat her with a special kindness. I noted that as the weeks wore on, she grew more gentle and cheerful, and was beginning to lose the angry look she had when I first met her. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and if you don't want to miss any of my other videos, then make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for part 3. Goodbye.